Okay, so we're going to talk about shading when we're shading inequalities, right? So we've talked about linear equations, and those are simply equations that make lines. So in our first example here, we have y equals 3x plus 7. So here's our line. Our y-intercept is right here at 7, and the slope is 3. So if our y-intercept is here, if I went up 1, 2, 3, and over 1, that would be my next point that's perfectly on the map, all right? So that's the linear equation, but now we need to talk about shading. So when we talk about shading linear equations, I want to get rid of this, and I'm going to, instead of having y equals, I'm going to have y is less than or equal to, less than 3x plus 7. So this says y is less than 3x plus 7. Y is less than 3x plus 7. All right, so nothing's really changed. Our y-intercept is still 7. Our slope is still 1, 2, 3 over 1. That part hadn't changed, right? What has changed is we have an inequality. So it doesn't equal, it's less than. It's less than, okay? So if it's less than, or if it's less than or equal to, we're going to shade down, or we're going to shade to the left. Okay? We're going to shade down, or we're going to shade to the left. In this case, we're shading down. Like if I pick a point right here, I shade it down there. If I pick a point right here, you can see it's shaded down, right? It's shaded down. So when it says less than, y is less than, we're going to shade down. We're going to shade down. All right? So what happens if instead of less than, it's less than or equal to? What's the difference between that and this?
Is this a solid line?
When it's less than or equal to, it's a solid line. When it's just less than, it's a dotted line. The shading still happens in the same area, but when it's less than or equal to, it's a solid line. When it's less than, it's a dotted line. So we can see that. What happens if it's y is greater than? So now we still have the same point, right? Our y-intercept is still here. 1, 2, 3 over 1. So nothing has changed with the linear equation, except now it's saying y is greater than 3x plus 7, right? So when it's greater than, you're going to shade up or to the right. So if I pick a point, here's a point right here, I'm shading up, right? I pick a point here, I'm shading up. I pick a point here, I'm shading up. So when you see greater than, you're going to shade up. And let's see, what's the difference between this one and this one?
The solid line.
Right, when it's less than, it's a dashed line. When it's greater than or equal to, it's a solid line. When it's less than, you can see that the line is a dot. It's a dotted line or a dashed line. When it's greater than or equal to, it's a solid line. All right, so let's talk about what happens when it's just a zero slope. So here it is. This is x equals 3, right? This is x, y. This is y equals 3. I'm on the y-axis, and I just look at 3, and there's a line that goes back and forth. Right? So that's a linear equation. How do we shade that if it's an inequality? Well, if it's y is greater than 3, we shade up. Right? If it's y is greater than 3, we shade up. Now, what type of line is it? It's a dashed line. Close the Chromebook. Close the Chromebook. All right. If it's y is greater than 3, do you see the pause button? All right, so when we have a dashed line, it's shading up. Now, what happens if it's y is less than? Let me change that from y is greater to y is less than. Now we're shading down. Now we're shading down, right? So if it's greater than, and this is the easy part, all you have to remember is this. If it's less than or equal to, right, you're going to shade down. Or to the left. And let me share with you what I mean by sharing to the left. I'll share that in a second. So for right now, we're just going to shade down. If it's less than or equal to, you're going to shade down. If it's greater than or equal to, you're going to shade up. Does that make sense? All right. That makes sense? Okay. All right. Well, let me show you one other thing. Let's say instead of we're doing the y, we're going to do the x. So I'm going to change that y to an x. Now we have an undefined line, right? So this says x is less than. When it's less than and it's an undefined line, you shade to the left. That's why I was saying earlier, when something is less than or equal to, you shade to the left or you shade down. In this case, we're going to shade to the left. All right. What if it was x is greater than? Now we're shading to the right. That makes sense?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the pretty simple stuff. If it's less than or equal to, you're going to shade down or left. If it's greater than, oh, I did it backwards. Somebody should have caught that. All right, so if x is less than or, then you're going to shade to the left. If it's greater than or equal to, you're going to shade up or right. So this is the little thing I need us to kind of understand. If it's less than or equal to, we're going to shade down or to the left. If it's greater than or equal to, we shade up or to the right. If you understand that, then everything we're about to do is going to be super duper easy. All right, stop the film.